Hey guys, Pat here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And today I wanted to show you the processes that I went through in order to complete this fuel tank. This is a 250 gallon horizontal oil tank. And when I bought it, I found out the reason why. The guy sold it after I bought it. And it leaked a little bit. It had some pinholes in it and whatnot. So I stripped the inside down, cleaned it up. I'm going to show you the process that I used in order to take and make this a usable tank again. So I have another video on this pump and how I put all the plumbing together and such. So if you're interested in that video, Heidi has that one also available. But this particular video is showing you how I cleaned out the tank, detailed the inside, took care of the rust, took care of the pitting, and all of the sludge inside the tank. So I hope you enjoy the video. Okay, this is day 2. This is after the muriatic acid wash, and it's got flash rust on here. Now you can see the steel 3/4 inch ball bearings I got in there to roll around to loosen up any surface rust. After I get done removing the acids back into their respective bottles, and then fully draining this and then rinsing it with clean water, this is what we have the next day. What I'm going to do today is put phosphoric acid in here, and that will do kind of the same thing as the muriatic acid, but it'll actually not allow the tank to flash rust like the muriatic acid. The muriatic acid I poured in there full strength, and the phosphoric acid I'll put in there full strength too. Here's a look at the intake side. You can see all the pitting on the bottom of this tank, and there's a weep hole very close to the edge of the weld right there. It's probably within maybe an inch of that weld, and so we're hoping that that 415 will seal that up. It claims it's supposed to seal up pinholes, so we're gonna see. I know you can find a lot of these tanks around for sale on Facebook Marketplace and where have you, and the reason probably for that is because once they start allowing rust into your fuel system, that's bad for injectors. So it's really important that a guy filters his fuel. I know they've got 30 micron filters out there, but you can actually see 30 microns. A 10 micron filter is a lot better. When I put the pour 15 in, or the sealer in here, I'll remove those valves, plug the holes, and protect the threads, and then put that pour in there, and then reinstall the valves after I get done sealing the tank. But this valve here will be used for discarding any water that builds up in the tank. These tanks normally, they slope forward towards the front of the tank. These feet here are adjustable, so you can adjust it to where the front of the tank is just a little bit lower, so any moisture will travel down the front of the tank, and where you can discharge any of the moisture through that valve right there that might build up, or any sludge or whatever. This is the process that I'm taking. No warranties expressed or implied as if you try this it's going to work. I'm not even guaranteed it's going to work for me. But I tell you what, we're giving it a good try. I've just got done putting this phosphoric acid in here. That turns your iron oxide, your standard rust, into iron phosphate. Now the muriatic acid wash, that just strips the metal down, eats away all the rust and makes it all disappear. When I looked in the tank yesterday, it was like it was sandblasted in there, soda blasted. It looked really clean. As soon as I rinsed it out, you know, I drained the acid back in, put it back in the container, just like I did with the degreaser, and then after everything was drained out, then I rinsed it with clean water, and I plan on doing the same thing with this. When it turns it into that iron phosphate, it won't allow the bare metal to flash rust again. You guys watching this video, you should be grown up enough to know to wear your safety equipment, your PPE, your long gloves. I got short gloves on and no long shirt. You want to wear clothes that you don't care about getting eat up, because this stuff will eat your clothes, and so will a strong base. So anyway, there's my safety tip. Take it for what it's worth. Have those steel ball bearings in there, and I shook the tank one way, rocked it back and forth to roll the steel ball bearings back and forth along the inside wall of the tank. I had the tank level, so the steel balls would be uniform all the way across the bottom of the tank instead of bunched up on one side or on the back side. So the tank was level front to back, and then I just rocked the tank back and forth on this side, went on the other side, and then rocked the tank back and forth. So it got the majority of the tank on each side. I'm really just concerned about the bottom of the tank, because that's where all your moisture builds up, and from what I understand, I heard from somebody that when diesel mixes with water, it creates some sort of a acid, but I'm just going to make the assumption that with the water in there, if it gets a little bit of oxygen, it's going to cause pitting, and eventually you're going to have a leaky tank. I'm going to let it set for a while. I'm going to rock it back and forth, front and back, try to get that phosphoric acid to etch that metal, and we'll do that for the rest of the afternoon. Hopefully we get that metal prepared for that sealer that I'm going to put in there. So as you can see, that is cleaning the inside of that tank. This phosphoric acid is not near as aggressive as the muriatic acid was. Well, the muriatic acid was like working right now, right lickety split. But anyway, you can see it. It's cleaning the inside of the tank. I'm just going to go by sight, you know, as how clean the bottom of the tank looks, as far as how long I leave the acid in there. It's starting to look pretty clean. I think I'll give it a couple more agitations, forward, backwards, sideways. Now you can see right there to the center of the camera, there's a drip, and that's where that real small, weepy little leak, get a drip every 30 seconds or so. You can see where it's just barely leaking right there. Okay guys, this is after I have rinsed out the residual from the second acid wash. I have the exhaust from the truck going in here, pushing warm air into the tank, and then just circulating the warm air from the exhaust through there. I've got the sun working for me today, and I also put a camp stove underneath there and lit the camp stove so the puddle would dry out a little faster. So I got a lot of things going on here. Again, safety wise, some might freak out, and some of you safety Nazis out there might say, oh, you shouldn't be putting fire close to the tank, and etc, etc. But the tank is clean, or there's no fumes left in the tank, especially when we have circulating exhaust from the truck running back through and coming from the exhaust and circulating any potential fumes that might be left in the tank, which is non-existent. And I know some welders years ago used to do this exact same process for repairing metal tanks like this. So the tank is almost dry, and now I'm getting ready to plug up these holes here. You're putting a plug in the bottom. I'm going to remove this nipple and replace that with a plug. And after we get all done, I'm gonna go ahead and take care of the outside of the tank as well. The tank has got a little bit of rust on it. I can see underneath where the guy before me, it looked like he had patched it. Patch right here. I don't know if it's coming in clear or not. I really like using this Rector Seal T+2 pipe thread sealer, but it's not good for fuels. It's only good for water. I know they have a sealer similar to this that's resistant to fuels and whatnot, but for this particular application, I want to coat the inside of the threads on these, and also when I take this nipple off, I'm gonna coat the inside of those threads, and that way the Pore 15 won't adhere to the inside of those threads. I guess that stuff is like concrete when it sets up, so I'm trying to do some preventative measures to keep it from doing that. Now, if you're really careful, you can take these close nipples off without ruining the threads, but if it's not too tight. If the nipple's not too tight, you can reuse them. So I try to stay as close to the inside or middle as I can. The other thing a guy has to be careful of is deforming this to make an oval out of it. Put too much pressure on it with a pipe wrench, you'll turn that round circle into an oval, and you'll have a hard time sealing that. So being very careful. See, we've got air coming out of here from the exhaust. So we'll coat the inside of this connection here. That'll keep that adhesive from sticking, I hope. Of course, I don't have a pipe wrench or an Allen wrench. I ran off and left the house without it. So I'm gonna have to hope for the best and just snug it up just a little bit. I'm gonna grab the outside few threads of the plug so that I don't booger up the threads that are actually going to be making contact or sealing on the female side. Okay, that's good enough. And we're just trying to keep the paint from dripping out of the bottom when it's going to be sitting still. So these don't have to be too terribly tight. Just that pipe paste on there is going to seal it because there's really no pressure on it. Okay, another look at the inside to make sure it's dry. The rust didn't flash off as bad this time as it did with the muriatic acid. Phosphoric acid doesn't seem like it's as aggressive as the muriatic acid is. Now the tank is actually hot to the touch. We have the exhaust from the truck running into the tank, but it's warm. We also have the sun having this nice and warm. I think might help me out in my setting time. So it's about probably 3:30, 4 o'clock, so I want to go ahead and get this whole thing coated before it gets cool. So I just went ahead and bought a gallon because it's a 250-gallon tank. A lot of people in the reviews are doing small items like motorcycle tanks and such as that. I didn't want to be caught short, so I went ahead and plunged and got the gallon. I'm going to dump half of this gallon in there to start with, see how much it covers. Well, there you have it. Now, as runny as this is, I'm sure this probably goes a long way. I like the idea of it being a little bit runny. That way it really penetrates your pitting and your seams and any pinholes. Okay, I'm going to call that good. Now I put me a funnel in here. Number one, it's going to keep me from getting all this sealer all over the outside of the tank, which I suppose it won't hurt it, but it might be ugly. And it'll also protect the threads inside there. I have a level gauge that I just bought, and I'm going to put that in this, inside the center hole here. Okay, that's right about half, a little less than half maybe. Okay guys, it's been a week and 2 days. I allowed the tank to cure for about a week. They said 96 hours on the instructions. I went ahead and took it longer. Allowed it to cure for a week, and then I went ahead and put about 4 gallons of diesel in it and let it sit for a couple days to see if there's any leaks. A couple of pinholes in the bottom of the tank. That pour 15 actually sealed those. Before I filled the tank, obviously I put some ball valves on here. I'm going to use this ball valve on the very bottom to discharge any water, any sediments that get carry off into the bottom of the tank. And then this one here would be to drain the tank or to take some fuel out of the tank, just gravity wise. So I got those in place. I installed this King tank gauge. The gauge that was on the tank to start with was broken, so I went ahead and made the plunge and got another tank gauge for the tank. I figured I was going to spend all this time and all this effort on the tank. I wanted to go ahead and make it right. I got a new bung for the one end. This is the fill side. I also put a little grease on the threads of this plug here to keep it from rusting. I'll put my fill right pump into this 2-inch opening here. Again, I put a little thin layer of grease on the threads in here so it would inhibit rust from occurring. So if I ever needed to take the pump off for any reason or the suction line out, then it would be easy to remove it. So to recap my process, when I first got the tank, I wanted to clean it out, so I ended up removing a lot of sludge out of here. That's just oily, rusty sludge. And I probably got about, I don't know, maybe a half a gallon out of it, half a gallon of sediment. And I just used gasoline to rock the tank back and forth and kept rinsing the tank. And I got 100 of these little steel bearings and actually inserted into the tank. As I was rolling the tank back and forth, it helped to knock some of that loose rust out of there. And so I kept draining out of the bottom drain cock here and into a little dish and into a waste receptacle. So I'd continue rocking the tank back and forth with those 100 3/4-inch steel ball bearings. Kept rocking it back and forth. Kept working the waste to that little drain valve at the bottom. I would drain that into a little reservoir, dump that into a bigger container, let that settle out, recycle that gasoline, and I kept doing that over and over again. That was more sanitary to do than just dumping gas in it and throwing it all over the ground. So I thought that was a little more environmentally friendly. I kept working that until all that was coming out was just the gasoline. I let that drain and dry. After I pressure washed the inside of the tank and got the very fine rust particles out of there that was left in there, I went ahead and left the ball bearings still in the tank. I put in some muriatic acid, washed that around with the ball bearings inside there. The ball bearings was rocked back and forth and basically kind of scour the bottom of the tank. That helped out a lot. Some people can use marbles, some people can use angular gravel, pea gravel, any of that kind of stuff to kind of help agitate the bottom of the tank against and kind of rub it, kind of sand it a little bit for you. I think the ball bearings worked out really nice for me. The bearings were heavy and they actually kind of helped to break up or crush any of the flaking rust that was in the bottom of the tank. After the muriatic acid scoured the bottom of the tank and the tank was really clean, I drained the rest, the muriatic acid out. I put it back into this container. So then I put phosphoric acid in the tank. With those ball bearings still in there, I rocked the tank back and forth. What happened with that process is that it took that flash rust, because this muriatic acid cleans that down to the bare metal, and you'll get flash rust. And so after I did the wash with the muriatic acid, drained the muriatic acid out, rinsed the tank out again, then I put phosphoric acid in there, and what happens with that, it turns iron oxide into iron phosphate. Before I painted it, I went ahead and drained it again, rinsed out the tank, let it dry, and I used a little camp stove and also the exhaust from the truck to move the air through the tank, and I set the tank out in the sun. That whole process allowed me to dry the tank out fairly fast, within a couple hours. And then I put this Pour 15 tank sealer on inside the tank, and I put half of this half-gallon, so that's a quart. I put a quart in the tank, just poured it in, and I kept working it back and forth, front to back, side to side. Laid it on its side, let that stuff kind of pour into the cracks and crevices and corners, into the pits where the metal had rusted badly. And I think I'm going to put red fuel in here and just use that for the equipment, off-road equipment for tractors and backhoes and excavators and such. That way I can buy the fuel a little bit cheaper. Anyways, it's just good to have extra fuel on hand with the fuel prices going up. I think I might stock up a little bit on fuel. And I hope this process helped you guys out. Is it worth it? You know, you're better off just to buy a new tank, but you see these tanks being given away all the time. If you've got the time, you got the patience, you got the effort, and you know what you're doing, you know, you can fix one of these old tanks up and it can last you for years to come. The absolute best tank to get would be a stainless steel. The second best tank to get would be an aluminum tank, but old steel tanks, you got to really be careful about that, because those iron particulate is going to get into your fuel, and if that gets into your injectors, I think it costs about $5,000 to redo the injectors in my truck. So you want to make sure that you change out your diesel filters on a regular basis, and get good diesel filters that filter down to 4 micron for the truck. The smaller the micron rating, the better. I know there's different brands out there, but I happen to have Fill-Rite. So I'm going to have a 10 micron filter on this. I know they make these 20 gallon a minute pumps in the 30 micron filters, but that's like filtering gravel. You can actually see 30 microns. So 10 microns is going to help a little bit. If you can get a filter that actually traps water, that's better yet. Now on the truck, I got a 15 gallon a minute pump. Fill-Rite actually makes a filter that's called a hydrosorb filter, and that hydrosorb filter goes down to 10 microns and traps the water as well. So you want to trap as much of that water and particulate out as you can in order to keep your injectors healthy on your truck. So anyway, I hope this helps you guys out, and thanks for stopping by. Take care, and God bless.